What's up? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, what's up? My name's Sam. I'm a bit of a strength training enthusiast. And I was thinking about something to talk about for a video today. I decided I would talk on something a little near and dear to my heart, very central to my lifting journey. Lifters can usually be placed in one of two kind of categories, right? You have, yes, there's a lot of people who kind of fall in the middle, but a little bit on each side of this spectrum, and you can kind of identify where you're at. You have people that, if they're left to their own devices and they're not paying attention, will kind of just passively gain weight. And part of the whole getting better at this holistic lifting thing, trying to get more jacked, is learning the habits to manage that body weight from climbing upwards, maintain some level of leanness, and just accumulate good training without that body weight climbing upward. And then there's the second category, which is people who, based on there's X amount of variance in metabolic rate. The kind of evidence right now is that variance is less than we think. More of it is just that you move more. There's caloric expenditure. And more so than anything, it's a difference in hunger signaling. And that seems to be the prevailing wisdom, that the people in the gain weight, it's just that their hunger signaling is stronger and they kind of fail to get those satiety signals quite as quickly. And then on the latter side, the people who really struggle to gain weight, if they're left to their own devices, they undereat to the point where it interferes with their training or their goals of gaining muscle mass. And again, it seems like the biggest part of that category is that their hunger signaling is very much on the other end. They don't get hungry very often. They'll forget to eat. If they're stressed, eating is the last thing they do. As opposed to someone on the other end of the spectrum, stress is probably met with an increase in desire for food, right? So you kind of have these two categories, and they have different habits they need to build up to be the version of themselves that is bigger, stronger, more jacked, leaner. The habits that need to be built differ a little bit. Now, I myself very much fall into that latter struggle to gain weight category. I started doing calisthenics every day when I was about 10 years old to supplement my boxing training. And I was a little bit short. I'm 5'10 nowadays. I shot up in height around that point. Probably was like 5'8". And I remember weighing in at 99 pounds in middle school and being a little embarrassed by that. Then my body weight just naturally climbed, kind of going through puberty, filling out, making no effort to eat more. If anything, I was restricting my food for boxing. And then I weighed about 145 to 155 pounds when I found my way into the gym for the first time. I wish I had some pictures to show like a cool transformation here because those always make for interesting videos and compelling storylines. But I have absolutely none because my whole life I've been very averse. Like I felt very uncomfortable taking my shirt off. I've been making an effort to get over it because it's very good for thumbnails and making the YouTube grow. But which in retrospect was crazy. You know, when I was 10, I had abs, and by the time I was like 15, I was pretty jacked, but I was like, had this deep embarrassment to ever take my shirt off, let alone have photos taken of me. All the way up till I was 230 pounds and looked crazy. In retrospect, best I ever looked, and I would not ever take a picture of myself, and I was never in social settings to have pictures taken of me. So I don't have any, but you can imagine them. Over the course of high school, I was trying with the limited information I had to gain weight. I was like, oh, frequency, gotta go eat dirty bulk, bro. Went to McDonald's, and I would try these various strategies, and just through kind of brute willpower, I would work my way up a little bit, and then I'd fall a little bit, and I'd work my way up a little bit, and I was about 185 pounds by the time I was finishing high school. I'd put on a good bit of muscle. I'd gotten a lot stronger. I'd done a 3-plate bench for a couple of reps. I'd squatted like 500 pounds, which not a standard result. I had definitely a natural aptitude towards strength training. And then I went off to college and I continued working my way up, and being on a meal plan, having a dining hall, let me kind of experiment with more information that I was consuming online. And I got a better and better strategy, though it was nowhere near as good and rigorous as my nutrition is nowadays, because I've figured out a lot of things to make my body give me less resistance in that process of gaining weight. I got up to about 210, 215 pounds, fairly lean still, in pretty good shape. Did my first 405 bench, and then I turned in the natty card, and I worked my way up to 235 pounds. And I think by a lot of people's standards, that was the best I ever looked. They would look at me now and be like, damn, you lifted weights for another 5 years, added a bunch of weight to your maximums only to look worse? That's crazy, and fair enough. But we've worked our way up to the 265-pound mark nowadays as kind of my general weight. And I'm hanging out here over time, just accumulating good training blocks until I feel like I'm at a good level of leanness, a good level of aerobic base. And I've checked off some strength goals at this body weight before I make my next kind of push up. And so along the way, I've figured out a lot of things that, like I said, it's still hard. To me, it's almost I love training. I love training so much. Taking rest days and making myself eat enough remain the part of lifting that I have to draw upon the most discipline. But I have figured out strategies that give me a lot less resistance. I was so stubborn. It was through nothing but effort. I threw up probably 1,000 times over the first, I don't know, 8 years of lifting. My brother can attest. I would just like puke up a meal and I would just turn around and I would head right back to the dining hall and eat the same meal again. It was through nothing but sheer stubbornness. But I think that's kind of mistake number one. We're going to kind of go over 3 tips that help me quite a bit. One is there's definitely a level of care that you need to reach. There's a level of stubbornness that you need to have. You can't think your way through this problem. There is just this continual accountability to build a habit that kind of goes against your natural Hugner-singling. But that being said, if you meet that level of kind of stubbornness, guys will think that they're going to just bullhead their way through this and just effort. I'm just going to sit down and eat such crazy amounts of food. Try to clever your way through it, not brute force your way through it, is kind of tip number one. Look for strategies that make it easier to achieve the same goal. Be clever. Use your head in addition to your stubbornness, right? Don't just say, well, my plan from day one is I'm going to keep eating 3 meals. They're just going to be 3 giant meals, and I'm not going to fucking get up until these are done. That will work if you are stubborn enough. Eventually, you'll keep those meals down, and you will gain weight through sheer effort. But there's better ways to organize that effort to get you a better result for less. Number 2 is that you want to pick adherence over optimization, right? I've got guys who work construction jobs who are very strong athletes, and it will be like, all right, I want you to pack up a bunch of PB&Js to eat on your drive, right? Is that optimal? Could I write something that's, oh, this is more optimal because a whole bunch of cool physiological rationale why this would be even better. People do this with their training as well, is they're so obsessed with this optimization that they're kind of failing themselves to give themselves the plan that they could execute with extreme consistency, because a decent looking plan done with extreme consistency will outperform a brilliant looking plan done with kind of consistency every single time. So that becomes a criteria when we're writing the plan. Whether that's a weird amalgam of snacks that fit to your school schedule really well and don't require you to cook, whether it's certain items that they're a little bit off the beaten path, but they're very convenient for you to attain, whether you kind of assemble a whole day of odd snacking across your weird work schedule instead of concrete meals separated through the day. Whatever it is, build a plan that's easiest for you to adhere to it for a while, and then try to ease your way towards optimization rather than throw the ball in the deep end with optimization and then try to ease into adherence. And the final one is frequency is king. If you struggle to gain weight, you need to break up your food across more regular intervals in the day. Have the first one as early as your schedule allows, so that way you're never starting late. Lots of the time, myself included, when I talk to guys who really struggle to put on weight, they're like, I'm eating so much, my metabolism's so nuts, bro. And I guess my pessimistic view is a lot of the time, yes, you eat a lot on the days that you're feeling motivated and on the ball, but it's the average that matters. And the days that you slack off and don't eat very much detract from that. That's not your crazy metabolism, bro. That's the weekly average, which matters a lot more. And very similarly, they also seem to often adopt the strategy of like small to medium breakfast or no breakfast at all. And then they do put in a lot of effort to force down as much food as they can. They go to like RPE 9 to 10 on the force feeding scale for lunch and dinner. And this will be outperformed every single time by if you adopt like a 4-meal frequency per day, and then you, in those meals, select food that digests relatively quickly so you could be ready for the next meal, and you eat to RPE 7 to 8 instead. You will eat more across the whole day than pushing yourself to the absolute limits less times. There's a training analogy in there, and it's very strong. And with this idea of higher frequencies, that means you need to just start building the muscle in your head that kind of passively plans where you're gonna get food. If you're in the dining hall, I'm gonna cook 2 at home. Whatever it might be, right? I'm gonna cook 3 at home, but then every day, right by my job site right now, I've got this. And again, we go back to that adherence is king. Sure, it'd be better if I brought a 4th homemade one, but I don't have time in the morning. Adherence is king, and we want to build that on top of this idea of frequency. You know, you get into the whole like, all right, well, if you fail to prepare, then you're preparing to fail. If you don't have plans on how you're going to source your food, on a bad day when you're feeling tired, you're just not going to source it. And that kind of brings us back to where we were, missing entire feeding windows and then trying to overeat in other ones, which is very difficult. I was very lucky to come across the vertical diet by Stan Efferding very early in my training, which just centers on, all right, high micronutrient density, which is something that I'll keep beating the drum for until the day I die, but then really ease of digestion and kind of easing into a higher frequency of eating. And that model it requires more work to prepare the meals, but in terms of the resistance my body gives me in terms of like satiety signaling and feeling sick and feeling pukey, it has given me way less resistance in the process of pushing my weight upward when I want to. So yeah, I guess that is my 3 tips. Number 1, you're gonna have to meet some level of giving a shit and stubbornness, but when you run into plateaus or resistance, if you have that stubbornness, don't over rely on it. Try to clever your way through those plateaus. 2 is write your plan with ease of adherence as your primary criteria in the first draft, and then plan to improve optimization over time from the base of great adherence. And then number 3 is frequency is king. Select foods that allow for that frequency. And I guess on a closing note, the frequency one is just one that was really easy for me to buy in because I was like, okay, well, you know, sedentary people, they eat 3 meals and they feel pretty good and that goes well for them. In terms of like, even just by being a serious lifter, not that it's this super hardcore thing, but by being a serious lifter, you are subjecting your body to as much stress as you can productively handle every single time you're recovered enough to productively handle it, right? Not that that makes you some Spartan warrior or anything, but that does make you think that, okay, well, maybe fundamental basic nutrition is gonna look a little bit different for me than when I was a sedentary guy. Sedentary people eat 3, lifter, I just kind of convinced myself, I was like, well, of course I would eat 4. They have to be cleaner, they have to be high protein, I wanna make sure I have vegetables with every single meal to kind of check off that micronutrient tally for the day. But it makes sense that I'm gonna have an extra feeding window because I'm doing damage to the body that other people aren't doing. And that kind of got me going. Eventually, as I got bigger and bigger, it got impossible to eat the amount of food. Not impossible. Again, I could do it. I know I could do it. But it got very difficult to eat as much food as I need in 4 meals. And so it became about halfway through college, I was like a 5-meal guy. Even if one of those meals is complete bullshit, it's just like a Pop-Tart, I need 5 feeding windows. And if I want to cut weight, I just cut to 4 feeding windows and the weight will taper down unless I'm feeling real stubborn. All right, that's all I got for you. Thank you for watching.